Hello, so good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining me this uh, evening for a wonderful Q&A on veterans benefits and disability claims. I'm excited to be with you. Let me know where you're from in the chat, what state you're from. Welcome to all our viewers watching this on replay. I am Carmella George. I'm a VA accredited claims agent. What that means is there are organizations like the DAV, American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, that those type of organizations, they're accredited by the VA as a group to do claims. I'm accredited as an individual to prepare, present, and prosecute claims before the VA. I absolutely love what I do. Um, it brings me great joy every day to win claims and see veterans get what they deserve, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Um, and that's part of what I do to try to help as many vets as possible, because the number of cases I can take is so limited. Is do these broadcasts and share with you all questions and answers and that type of thing, so you get a feel for directions you need to go in your claim. Um, Tonight we have a special guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a second. Let's see where we have some viewers from. Atlanta, Georgia, Dominican Republic, wow. Alabama, Maryland, Boston, MA in the house. Hey, St. Louis. Tennessee, Georgia, wow, Savannah, DC, I'll be there in a few weeks. Texas, San Antonio. Wow, guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us tonight. So if you follow me regular on social media, join our Facebook group, um, subscribe to me on YouTube, Veterans Disability Claims, Vets Disability Claims on Instagram, and of course, here on Facebook is just Facebook/group/Vets Disability. I also have a page, Carmella George. So that's all by way of intro. Let's get some questions rolling. We do have a special guest tonight. Miss Leah Bucholz is joining us all the way from Texas, I believe. And so I'm going to let Leah introduce herself.
Hey guys, my name is Leah Bucholz, and this is my second time doing a video with Miss Carmella, and we really enjoyed it the last time, and hope you guys felt it to be helpful. So we wanted to jump on again today. I am a physician assistant and an Army veteran, and I am a medical expert, former comp and pen examiner for two of the major contract examiners for the VA, and I now own a company called Procedural Wide Medical Consulting, and we assist veterans at times with letters. But more importantly, I like to be here to kind of, as Carmella was saying, help educate and reach as many people as possible with just the knowledge that we've had in our experience, and hopefully it can help some of y'all out there.
Awesome. So we are going to jump right into questions. I am going to answer the question best I can, but when it comes to medical questions and stuff like that, I'm going to throw it to Leah and we're going to bounce back and forth. So hopefully you find this really useful. All right. Can I file for somatic symptom or depression secondary to service connection migraine, tinnitus, migraines, and your feet? Thanks. Basically, or your toes. Basically, yes, you can. I see it all the time. With all three of those things, I would encourage you to file that claim if those are things affecting you. Thank you both for all you do for vets. Oh, thank you, Bob. You're awesome.
Thanks for your support.
When filing secondary claim, and I still have a dental situation going on, so if you can't understand me, please forgive me. It should be resolved soon. When filing secondary claim to tinnitus, what if your disability only aggravates the condition and not causes it? Well, aggravation is one of the 5 ways that you can get service connected. If a disability is aggravated by one of your service connected disabilities, it should be service connected. Or if you had the condition pre-service and service aggravated the condition, Allen aggravation, it should be service connected. So it does not have to cause it can be proximately due to or the result of. The law allows for that. So that is probably something you want to pursue. What if we need a buddy letter? Can you all help us find our buddy? Sure. If you're looking for somebody, post it in the group. And if we can help, we'll help. Can you explain this new claim category of chronic pain syndrome? So basically, chronic pain syndrome is not called chronic pain syndrome anymore with the new manual that psychologists and psychiatrists go by, the DSM or something like that. It's called somatic symptom disorder, and it's just basically chronic. The VA rates it as a mental health condition, so it's basically just pain affecting you in your daily life. Leah, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's just like Carmella was saying, it's the DSM-5, I believe, is the issue that they're out on now. It might be 6 by now, but I think it's 5. It used to be chronic pain syndrome. It's now more referenced as somatic symptom disorder. It's important for you to understand. A lot of veterans will come to me and they think that chronic pain is the same thing as chronic pain disorder. And there is a difference. I'm not a psychologist. I don't really see mental health patients. But just because you have chronic pain, because you got back pain, doesn't mean that you have met the clinical criteria for chronic pain syndrome as diagnosed by your mental health practitioner in accordance with the DSM-5. So veterans slip up on that sometimes, I see.
Can tinnitus be secondary to migraine? Well, I'm going to let the medical professional answer that, but I will say that I've seen it a number of times.
So I guess there's always a possibility for anything. Most of the veterans I see develop headaches because of the ringing in their ears, not kind of the other way around. That's mostly what I see, is that the ringing tinnitus or tinnitus or however you want to pronounce it causes them to have worsening of their headache symptoms. I suppose there could be a bidirectional relationship where the headaches can make your tinnitus get worse as well.
Yeah, I've seen it approved. I'll say that much. Mm-hmm. It might not be the case. It might be your specific case. You know, all individual diseases and injuries develop differently in everybody. So if that is true for you, definitely file the claim. Can you be rated for both GERD and IBS, or do they fall under the same claim? So the VA will not rate you separately for GERD and irritable bowel syndrome. Basically, they believe it's the same body part, and if you were to get separate ratings, that would be violating the law called pyramiding, which you can't be rated for the same system twice. And so, no, you cannot be rated for GERD and IBS separately. They will combine the name GERD and irritable bowel syndrome and give you a rating for whichever is higher. So you will get the higher of the two. Let's see. I am a National Guardsman and got diagnosed with sleep apnea while on Title 10 orders. Do I have a case for VA compensation? Yes. If you were on Title 10 orders, you were active duty at the time, and it's on your record, you need to file a claim. I have a friend that slipped on ice while in service. Ooh. And it is documented as back trauma. Can they claim for chronic back pain due to the fall? I would definitely think so.
I see that a lot, Carmella. So I see, of course, you got to look at their post-service medical records too to see did they have a major accident or anything after service. But if there's nothing like that in the record, and they've got one incidence of back pain, there's a lot of literature out there to support, even one episode of back pain causing long-term dysfunction. And I see that very frequently.
Yeah, and it's important to remember sometimes with disabilities or diseases, injuries, what have you, that it starts really small. Starts with the ache in the knee, starts with the ache in the back, starts with maybe an earache or a sore throat or sniffling. And then over time it grows into something really big. So if you felt like he actually had trauma, so it definitely probably is related, but the VA is going to ask a medical professional that question. So yes, but he can definitely claim it. Can you file a claim for PTSD secondary to tinnitus? Okay, so you can file the claim, but the chances of it being approved are probably slim to none. There are better ways to approach mental health secondary to tinnitus. Even if you were to claim it as mental health condition secondary to tinnitus, or maybe anxiety secondary to tinnitus, there are elements of PTSD. I'm not a medical professional, but there are elements of PTSD like anxiety, depression, insomnia, stress even, that would be a better claim secondary to tinnitus. What type of documentation do you need for secondary condition? Well, this is an interesting question because it doesn't require very much, sometimes none at all. I do claims every day, and the veteran has no record, no history, I should say, of the secondary condition, but they still get service connected for it because it is a problem on the day of exam. The examiner can clearly see they have a problem with GERD or they have a problem with, the other knee, secondary to the other knee, because they've been limping around and that type of thing, it caused the other knee to hurt. So things that are kind of obvious, you don't need that long of a history for, but the smarter way to file the claim would be to have a history of the other condition or already have a diagnosis. You want to be as buttoned up with the VA as you can. You want to have the best chance at your claim. And to do that, it would be smart to already have a diagnosis, to have a medical history of it, and to complain to your primary care and other doctors about it. So what documentation do you need to have? Technically none for a secondary condition, but it's good to have some. Okay. The examiner denied my combat PTSD claim. She based her denial from looking through my past medical records and said I did not have PTSD but was seen for depression. How should I proceed now? Supplemental, new claim, or appeal? The examiner said I was depressed because my mom was sick and sibling passed away. My goodness. Did that death happen while you were in service? Or did your sibling pass away while you were in service? If so, that is related to service. But even if not, this might be a case of saying a little bit too much at an exam, because if you put too much, tell them too much about your childhood or about other facets of your life, they're going to try to nail it on something else, or hang it on something else. But I think the proper, or what the way to go here would be to get an outside medical opinion about that depression or that PTSD and go back at it. You have any thoughts, Leah?
Yeah, I think it's tough. If you were seen on active duty for depression and they're just kind of splitting hairs with you on, okay, well, you didn't have PTSD, but you did have depression, the examiner should be able to opine that no, the PTSD isn't related. However, the depression is. But sometimes it's interesting because I think sometimes with those exams, if the contracted question is not specifically about that, they will kick it back to the examiner and say, we're not asking you about the depression. We're asking you specifically about the PTSD. And if that's not in your file, that might be why it was, ignored. So maybe a higher level review. I don't know, Carmella, if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
If you've got a mental health condition diagnosed on active duty, certainly I think that that's legitimate.
Right. Leah's absolutely right. I think that route I might take first, if you can afford outside medical evidence, it's outside medical evidence and the supplemental. But if not, definitely do the HLR and get somebody else to relook at your file, and just attack the examiner's opinion as inadequate. I was first diagnosed with a hand situation, had a surgical procedure for that. However, it was a 50-50 shot. Later, as years passed, I developed C1, C2, C3. After the surgery in 2021, I found I had severe carpal tunnel syndrome, which is the basis of my real problem. I fit the profile at first because of large mass on my thumb and web space. Now I have numbness and tingling like frostbite in my hands. Wow. Does this merit a NOD supplemental claim now that 3 doctors from VA diagnosed? I need more information about your claim, but probably does warrant a supplemental claim. If you have more evidence, new and relevant evidence, definitely submit that with a supplemental claim. But I'm not able to see the rest of your question. Can tinnitus be secondary to sleep apnea or vice versa, my friend?
Oh, you want me to get on my soapbox? I love this one. So, okay, here's the thing. This question gets asked a lot, and I have a pretty firm stance on this, right? But this is just my opinion, okay? My opinion is not black and white, right? I do not think that tinnitus plays a role in the development of obstructive sleep apnea at all, okay? I think that there are veterans that have been connected for it because, you can never say all or never, right? So there may be an examiner who's having examiner or a rater who's having a nice day and just approving everything that afternoon, right? But I have never personally seen somebody approve for that, and I've seen hundreds, if not more, denials for that. Sleep apnea is caused by collapse of the upper airway, period, right? Obstructive sleep apnea is caused by collapse of the upper airway due to excess body tissue. Right? Tinnitus does not cause collapse of the upper airway. Now, there are veterans who get service connected for a mental health condition related to their tinnitus. And then the sleep apnea is related to the mental health condition. Absolutely. I've seen that many times, right? But now we're no longer talking about the tinnitus. We're talking about the mental health condition, right? Doesn't matter what caused the mental health condition. I get it that the tinnitus probably caused it, but now we're specifically looking at that mental health disorder, and its comorbidities like the obesity as an intermediate step, the medications, et cetera. And that is what we can see related to the sleep apnea. But I do not personally think that tinnitus causes sleep apnea directly. And I don't think that OSA would cause tinnitus reversely. What do you think, Carmella?
I agree with everything Leah said. I would have said it the same way, except I would have added, I'm not a medical professional. Miss Goodwin, hi. I miss you, Carmella. Miss you too. My husband passed away in December. Sorry to hear that. Hope you're doing well. I filed for a PMC, initial service-connected death survivor's pension. I just received a packet saying fill this out. The 13055. What should I do? I would fill that out and send it back. They're probably just processing your claim and need some more information. I was denied for migraine secondary to tinnitus, even though all the evidence I provided with the claim and the examiner, but the VA denied anyway. What can be done on this? You might want to ask for a higher level review. If you provided evidence that there is a positive connection, you might want to try a higher level review. How far booked are you both? My schedule is going out into November right now. I'm not accepting any new clients. Yeah, I'm probably, to be honest with everybody, I'm probably booked through the new year. Um, but if I can open intake, I will open intake and take clients, but that's not the case right now. Leah?
So my process is a little bit different than Carmella. So we, generally speaking, my process is about 7 days or less in my turnaround process. And so I do not really get full because I have the ability to, sit down and review files. And I also have a couple of other experts in my company. I've got one girl, Heather Call. She's fantastic. She worked in cardiology for a decade. So a lot of times when I get cardiac cases, Heather will be the one that takes the point on those. So we have just a different business model. And so we're not really full. We don't really get full.
All right. She's available. Use Leah.
Yes,
Leah. I got a point that way.
If you need help, I'm available. But you also can, hit up your primary care manager or, a local doc that can assist you as well. But I am here if needed.
I keep being denied for arthritis, but I'm diagnosed with chronic pain, scoliosis, as well as osteoarthritis. I'm stuck at 90%. I caught bacterial meningitis back in 1999, wow, which causes me migraines, and I take monthly injections. Yet I've been denied for that too. What can I do? Okay, arthritis of what? What body part is the arthritis in? That's the first thing the VA is going to want to know. You have to name the specific body part. The second thing is, have you tried any secondary claims? If you're service connected for scoliosis, your back or your hips or your knees, sometimes joints can be connected to other joints secondarily. Mm-hmm. So that might be another route to take. But if you're stuck at that 90%, you definitely want to look at some secondary claims. Let's see. If I lost my job due to some of my anger issues and PTSD, do I need any letters from my employer to possibly file for individual unemployability? Yes, the VA is going to send your employer a form. I forget the number right off the top of my head, but it will basically ask them why you were let go, and was it due to your disability or anything like that? And they have the opportunity to answer that. Are employers required to do it? No, some of them don't. Some people still get approved for unemployability without it. But if you can get anything from your employer, maybe your former manager or something like that, will write a letter that would help and go in your favor.
I got something on that real quick. I have also seen veterans, and you may have seen this before. I've seen veterans, and when they ask me, I don't really get involved with that type of stuff, but there are forensic vocational assessors that you can see as well. You can probably find one in your town, in your local area. I think there is a few different medical companies that, I think Mednick has a forensic assessor as well. But just in your local area, if you find there's a specialty where you can go and they can do an assessment of your disabilities and do a write-up for you, and that may help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, vocational opinions help sometimes in unemployability claims, but those things are big in Social Security and so disability. And so there's probably lots of people in your local town. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you claim secondary stuff while going through a med board, and how does that work? I need to start by saying that I am not the best person to ask about med boards. I handle the part after service. But Leah might know.
Yes. Yeah, so I was kind of like, this is a little known secret. I don't talk about it a lot, but I have a good amount of experience with med board stuff, because when I was on active duty, I put probably several hundred veterans in the med board in my time. So I don't know a ton about the administrative process, but this is what I would say. Absolutely. You can get, everything is going to be rated during your med board process. So you have DOD disability, and then you have the VA side. The DOD is the percentage that you're going to get for the condition that's been referred to the med board specifically. The condition that makes you get booted out of that makes you not fit for duty. Everything else is going to be rolled up under VA. So anything that you get documented is going to be put in there, generally speaking. And if you have very specific questions, I always tell veterans to go to MEV Legal Counsel. On every installation, there's going to be a JAG attorney that is there to support you through that process, and your PEBLO will be able to answer that as well. So yes, your secondary, and they're not really secondary, because if you're on active duty, then it's still primary, right? So if you're on active duty and you're in the med board process, nothing is really secondary, because anything that you get diagnosed while in an active status is going to be primary or direct. Is that correct, Carmella?
Right. Leah's absolutely right. And file everything you can while everything that's bothering you while on active duty, get as much documentation as possible. And I hope that goes well for you.
Best of luck.
If the VA has officially diagnosed major depressive disorder and a vet is on meds after 20 years, can a claim be put in as that major depressive disorder secondary to my current service-connected disability? Of course. Yes, very much so. I filed for sinusitis, however you say it, and migraines, and got denied. How do I submit more supplemental evidence to support my claim? You just get more medical evidence that's new and that's relevant. You might need a Nexus letter at this point to support your claim, and then submit it with the supplemental form 20-90995, and the VA will reevaluate it. I have back injuries in my Army records, as well as lumbar region and lower back pains. I have also been denied for this and other issues too. I'm sorry to hear that. Will the VA accept my statement as sufficient evidence to prove chronicity of care, or is something more going to be needed? It depends on the specifics of the situation. A lot of times, statements can fill the gap if the examiner pays attention to the statement. Sometimes examiners just look over statements and overlook statements and don't really pay them much attention. They're just looking at medical evidence. And so it's all about the specifics of your case. How long of a gap are we talking about? The VA understands that you don't go to the doctor every day. No, unless you're terminal or chronically ill or that type of thing. Nobody goes to the doctor every day. That's just not how diseases and injuries and long-term chronic pain type stuff work. But generally, 1-2 years is not going to. They're not going to get you for chronicity. So it just depends on how long of a gap it is. If it's 35 years where you got hurt in service and you don't have any documentation till 2021, that's more of where your statement would come into play, that you still this has still been a problem, and you would hope that the examiner would take your statement into consideration. I've actually had a recent BVA case, Board of Veterans Appeals, where the first examiner denied the veteran on the exam, and the examiner wrote on the exam, the veteran stated he has had headaches for 42 years. Well, that was enough for the BVA to remand it back to the agency. The agency re-looked at it, sent it to a new examiner, and the examiner said, well, if he says he has headaches for 42 years, then, it definitely started in service, and it's service connected. And so statements matter. Late evidence is powerful evidence, especially at the BVA level. So please submit it, and hopefully it fills the gap. Going through med board, and I'm told I can claim everything that I have been seeing. Even if I haven't, I can still claim it and get seen for it in case they don't rate me, but I can claim it later. That's true. Leah?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to an old battle buddy of mine about this last night, and what you guys need to understand, y'all folks going through the med board and on active duty, is that the periods of service are on that DD 214. So from this date to this date, anything that you get seen for should be considered in the line of duty unless something crazy went down, circumstance wise. So if you don't feel like you're getting the care that you need on post, you have the right to go, and I mean, nobody wants to pay out of pocket, but if you go get seen wherever, that's still during a period of active duty service, right? So any medical records that you have, whether you're seen by your PCM, you're seen by the physical therapist, you go off post and get a second opinion, whatever, that's all in the line of duty. And so just keep your records. Make sure, another thing that I always encourage people is don't go do a data dump on your medical provider. Don't go in there and ask to be seen for 20 things in one visit, because I guarantee you only about 1 or 2 of those is going to get documented appropriately, right? So make individual appointments and go get seen for, max 2, 3 things max per visit. Otherwise, you're not doing the provider's not getting due diligence to those conditions if you're asking them about so many things at once. So go get seen, dedicated appointment for 1 or 2 things at a time, and then they're going to get documented appropriately.
Good stuff. Interesting question here. Can you claim COVID? You certainly can, especially if you had it on active duty. The VA has recently spoken about this, and they are going to rate it analogous to West Nile virus. But remember that in order to be service connected, there has to be a current residual condition. And so if you had COVID and it's left, what did COVID cause? Did it cause you a breathing problem? Did it, is it you still have respiratory issues? If so, claim that. But yes, you can claim COVID. How many times can you file for an increase for a service-connected disability? You can file for increase as much as you want, but I would not advise it once you get to the max level for that condition. I believe I have a Q claim. What's the best way to handle it? If you believe you have a Q, you need to write it up and file it, or either get somebody to help you. I had a shoulder injury while in service, and I had to have surgery for a torn ligament after I got out. The doctor even wrote me a letter saying that it happened in service. It was still denied. I don't know why it isn't service connected. I even had to have surgery done on it. What other documents do I need? So this sounds like a good appeals case. It definitely sounds like a case I would appeal, and go to a higher level at. I think that you would get a different decision maybe at the Board of Veterans Appeals, and maybe even on a higher level review if your injury is that apparent while in service. So I would just get a different set of eyes on it, argue that you deserve another exam, or get an outside Nexus letter or something like that. But that's definitely something I would continue the process on. Don't let the appeal date slip. Would sleep apnea be service connected if diagnosed within 6 months of retirement and reported on retirement physical? It should be.
For sure. I mean, if it's active duty retirement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I suffer from severe depression and chronic pain. My psychiatrist says that I might be a candidate for SSD. Can you claim SSD even though it's mental health plus my already mental health diagnosis? Okay, so here's the question. Well, I believe you asked a couple questions already. So I know that you're in the middle of a med board about to get out of service. The thing is, you can just put in a claim that I don't do this, but because you're in service, I'm giving him this specific advice. I would file a claim that just says mental health condition and let the examiner decide, based on your history, what the correct diagnosis is. If SSD and depression and chronic pain is in your records, they will figure it out. They might give you 2 or 3 diagnoses, but let the examiner figure it out. For everybody else, if you're claiming mental health condition, name it. I prefer to put in named claims, not just mental health condition, acquired psychiatric disorder, whatever, because it comes down to this. If you get denied for depression, 1 year, you can go back, in another claim and claim anxiety secondary to something. But if you just put mental health condition, you're ruling out all mental health conditions for the future. So you got to do what's most advantageous to yourself. I've read about a new issue with the VA about obesity. Is this true? Well, it's true that a case has been won at the federal circuit that talks about obesity, and it's been sent back to the Court of Veterans Appeals to adjudicate. Now, I know a certain individual, well known in the VA law world, is saying that yes, you can now claim obesity. I don't know about that. My take on it is if until they update the Raiders manual about it, it's just going to be denied at the original office level, and you'll have to go to the Board of Veterans Appeals. The Board of Veterans Appeals might be adjudicated differently, but it's so new. Everything about this is so new that it's hard to tell what the VA is going to do right now. And especially until the court puts out an opinion, like the federal circuit told them to, we really don't know which way the VA is going to go, because the VA has attorneys. They fight these cases, blah 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 blah. They're going to try to argue that it should not be a service connected condition. So it all depends on what the court puts out, really. What if you have PTSD in your records from childhood trauma, but the Army triggered it and now you're having setbacks, or it's reminding you of your childhood? How would one claim PTSD? Or can you claim PTSD with a combat action badge? Okay, so yes, you can claim it with a combat action badge. But the thing is, when you enter the Army, is PTSD marked on your record? Because if it's not, then you enter the Army with the presumption of soundness, that you had no defects or nothing that would make you unfit or anything else for military duty. And so your childhood trauma is not going to be viewed as what they should do is start from your situation in the military is what I'm saying. And so, but yes, if the Army triggered your PTSD, it can be rated. That's the answer to your question is yes. I would claim it. What I would do is, when you get to the exam, I would talk about it both ways. I would talk about it being as a result of your combat and the trauma, whatever trauma you experience in the military, and I would talk about it being being triggered. Make sure you're able to tell your full story in the exam. If I have been given a CPAP machine for sleep apnea by the VA prior to filing a claim, will they require another sleep test prior to granting my current claim? Usually they don't. If it's recent, they probably won't require another sleep study. I'm thinking about applying for aid in attendance. I'm at 100% and I look fine, but I need help from my wife to stay on task. I think I might qualify for SMCL. I would investigate the possibility. Going to try and file 20-09 for my not in service results. Is this correct form? If you file that form 20-0995, I believe it is, you're going to need to have to send in new and relevant evidence. The terms have changed with the new law. New and relevant evidence with your claim in order for them to adjudicate it. Received 50% for sleep apnea, and I haven't worked for 7 years, disability through SSA. I filed for TDIU sleep apnea. Can they reduce my benefits? This is a good question. Technically, they can, but for a case like sleep apnea, it probably won't happen if you're still using your CPAP and things like that. But when you file for TDIU, you get examined for everything you put on that form that causes your TDIU, And if your disabilities have improved, they will in fact reduce the disability. How often that happens, I don't think it happens very much. Usually when people apply for TDIU, they are, it's a chronic state, and it's causing, the disability is causing a lot of trouble. Okay, here we go. I have no problem falling asleep, but wake about 1 to 2 a.m. nightly and can't fall back asleep because my mind is racing. Is this considered sleep apnea or sleep disturbance? Is there such a claim? I do have PTSD, migraines, and tinnitus. Leah?
I mean, so this is not medical advice at all, right? So, but what you're basically describing sounds like it might be some insomnia, which is typically, from my understanding, when you have a mental health condition that's rated, that's usually considered up under that. A, due to pyramiding, if you filed insomnia, it will be lumped in with it. But then B, if you actually look at the PTSD rating criteria on your decision letter, usually it'll say whatever your percentage is for depression, PTSD, whatever, insomnia is a part of that rating criteria, why they put you at a certain level. Sleep apnea typically is described as periods of apnea or stopping breathing essentially while you're sleeping. They might have some snoring, things like that. But if you're waking up and your mind is racing, that sounds like part of a mental health component to me. I don't know. What do you think, Carmella?
Yeah, Leah's right. Pretty much you're already rated for a mental health condition. So, and if you're at 70% or 100% for mental health, there's really depending on the intensity of your condition, there's probably little reason why you should pursue a higher rating. Forgive me. You already have a mental health condition. So unless you feel like your mental health condition is worse than what you're already rated, you're just opening back up your PTSD for possible reduction. So be careful with that and make an informed decision.
Well, hold on, one more thing. I will say that it would be best for you to follow up with your treating provider and let them know what's going on. And if they believe that you have the symptoms, that maybe you meet the criteria to get a sleep study done, they might order one for you and try to really dig into that and see what's going on. So that's probably another good thing for you to do, is just follow up with your own personal healthcare provider and see what their thoughts are.
Right. That's good. Is there a time frame of how long a supplemental claim takes? There is no defined time frame. In the law, it could take as long as they want it to take. But generally, I think I saw on the VA post on Facebook the other week that it's taking about 139 days right now for a supplemental claim. This is what, 3 months, 3 to 4 months. So that's generally the time frame. How do you get sleep apnea connected to PTSD? I think in most cases, most people are going to tell you that PTSD does not cause sleep apnea. What I do think is sometimes it can be a result of, meaning that things like weight come into play and other things that PTSD causes that throw the body off and can result in sleep apnea. But basically, you're going to need, in most cases, to get sleep apnea connected to PTSD, you're going to need an outside opinion aside from the VA examiner. Leah?
I think there's a lot of things, like Ms. Carmella was saying, the obesity is an issue, whether it's due to compensatory eating habits. Veterans will describe sometimes that they don't have energy to go to the gym, that they have a social phobia and don't like to be outside, that they, maybe they have a binge eating disorder or alcohol issues that are, involved as well. Medications that they're taking can predispose them to the development of weight gain and things like that. I will say that there's some literature that I include in my letters that discuss hypotonia of the upper airway due to REM sleep disturbances that is seen in sleep apnea. A lot of times, if someone is not obese, right, or even overweight, if their BMI is under 25, I think that's sometimes a stronger argument for PTSD alone, because then it's like, well, what is causing it then? You know what I mean? But there's other risk factors, like what's your Mallampati score, which is the oral airway scoring. A lot of the times the examiners will cite, oh, they have this terrible Mallampati score. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes you might as well just flip a coin and see who your examiner is, because you just never know. Like, I've seen sleep apnea claims just go through to PTSD, like no problem. You know, you get an examiner and a rater, and they just, you know, there just seems to be no rhyme or reason sometimes, where you just get some that are just adamantly against it. I think I saw a post today where in your group, Carmella, or in Doug's, where someone said their examiner flat out said that they don't believe sleep apnea is related to anything unless there's trauma to the upper airway. And I'm like, if the examiner believes that, the second you walk in the door, then their mind is already closed to the prospects of it being something else.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. I have headaches, migraines that are documented in my Army records. I got denied for this as well. I would appeal. I would appeal the mess out of it, whether you get new evidence or go back the supplemental route, or you go higher level review or appeal to the board. Keep going. Do not take the initial no for an answer. If it's documented in your Army records, we know it started in service. Mm-hmm. And if it's been a problem continually since service, we know it should be service connected. So keep pursuing it is what I would say. Can insomnia be found secondary to tinnitus? Yes, I see it quite often, and I see it approved often.
Well, yeah, I see it a lot too. Now, be careful though if you already got a mental health rating.
Right, because insomnia is rated as mental health. So if you're already rated for PTSD or depression, anxiety, something like that, be careful claiming insomnia too, because it's just going to open back up your mental health rating. If approved for a claim and backdated 1 year, can you be reimbursed for medical bills for that period of time? I believe there is a way that you can. Yes, I heard about it briefly before. My neurologist states my migraine decreased, even though I still get migraines every week in his notes, which I don't agree. The medications are not working. I have a migraine log. How do I get the 50%? I would submit your migraine log with your claim.
Keep in mind that 30 to 50%, from my understanding, also includes considerable impairment of health, and that is a completely subjective component. And if the examiner does not believe that it's considerable impairment of health, that might, or prostrating, you could have 100 headaches a month, and if they check that they're not prostrating, then you're going to get 0%.
Mm-hmm. I am service connected with chronic sinusitis. I have been diagnosed with severe sleep apnea. What are my chances to make this claim service connected, Leah?
I think they're pretty good. I mean, if you're obese, that's also a risk factor if you've got some of those other risk factors. But even veterans that are obese, I see get connected especially if you've got pretty significant chronic sinusitis. I see sleep apnea to chronic sinusitis quite often.
Okay. I have OSA, sleep apnea. I am obese, as I have a service-connected knee condition that limits exercise. Is there a possibility to file a claim to connect the sleep apnea to the SC obesity condition, service-connected? I think there's a pretty good chance of it getting service-connected secondary to your knee. Just make it clear that you are claiming sleep apnea caused by weight gain due to service-connected knee. I would write that very plainly, even if you have to fill out a paper form. Yeah, if that has been the sequence of events for you, then it shouldn't be an issue. But we all know that things are up to the examiner that you see when they send you for a claim exam. Need to be seen by medical specialists. Do sleep study to get the diagnosis for sleep. Oh, okay. Leah, what is your information to reach out to you?
So my website is prestigeworldwidemctx.com. You can also find me hanging around in Carmella's Facebook group a lot. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel. My name is Leah Bucholz. It's Bucholz. And our business, our website has our way to contact us too, phone number and all that kind of business.
Awesome. What is the process with filing a claim? I am a newbie. So basically, if you're a newbie, I would seek help. A representative, a veteran service officer, free help. Your county probably has them, or you have a DAV, Disabled American Veterans Chapter, VFW, Wounded Warrior Project. A group like that can help you file a claim. But if you were to do it yourself, you would go to va.gov, hit the disability application tab, and it would walk you through the process of filing a claim. Basically, it asks you all the questions you need to file a claim if you're doing it yourself. But if you're a newbie, I would highly encourage you to seek help and somebody who knows what they're doing in filing your claim. Wow, speaking of cardiac cases, can something with shortness of breath and I forgot how to say that word, be service connected?
Yeah, so for sure. So what is the reason for the bradycardia though? So most young active service members and even veterans, like I have bradycardia, right? If your heart rate is, normally in the 50s or 40s, you can have bradycardia and be normal. It sounds like you're probably not. So if you were diagnosed on active duty with a cardiac arrhythmia, whatever it is, and it has been sustained since service, you're going to probably be able to connect that on a primary or direct basis. Now, if you have another service connected disability that's causing you to have cardiac complications, right? Let's say here's a big one, sleep apnea. A lot of people will develop atrial fibrillation from that, right? From long-standing untreated sleep apnea. Now, bradycardia and shortness of breath, I would wonder what's the underlying condition. Do you have CHF or congestive heart failure? Is that what's causing the shortness of breath? Those things that you discussed, the shortness of breath and syncope, are symptoms. And so what does your doctor think the cause of those symptoms are? What is causing you to have a slower heart rate and shortness of breath? Find out what that is, and then, maybe, depending on what your other service-connected disabilities are, but absolutely.
I have tachycardia due to high anxiety level I have from my PTSD. Can that be a secondary claim? Same for my migraines. They get crazy bad the more stressed I am.
Yeah, so migraines all day, right? I see that a lot. But tachycardia, again, like, do you have sustained tachycardia? Do you have... Again, I just talked about atrial fibrillation, but we see, I see things like hypertension and other things like that, service connected to mental health disorders, depending on the circumstances. You got to look at other things like, what's the family history? Is the person a smoker? Are they obese? But then again, on the flip side, if they're obese, is it related to the PTSD? So we marry that into, so the answer is yes, possibly. But what is causing the tachycardia? Is there an underlying disorder?
I filed a claim for dry eye secondary to migraine medication. CMP doctor diagnosed dry eyes, but stated I only started using migraine medication in 2019, even though I started using migraine medication in 2012. I provided documentation from my optometrist stating dry eyes caused by excess migraine medication. I believe it's a cue because the doctor didn't clearly look at what I submitted, which also included a list of my medications from 2012. A cue is a high legal standard. Has to rise to a very high legal standard to be a cue. I don't necessarily feel like you have a cue for a number of reasons, but you do have a supplemental claim. I mean, you are higher level. It would be a great higher level review case if the documentation was of record when you did the exam. Then the examiner clearly overlooked, facts of record, and made an error. But proof, the burden of proof on a clear and unmistakable error is on the veteran. And I just wouldn't go that route. It's much easier to just pursue it as an appeal in some form. I would probably, in your case, do a higher level review. What conditions have you seen service connected for exposure to JP5 jet fuel and hydraulic fluids? Like asthma, COPD. I mean, there's a number of conditions that can be, there's lots of studies on this, but the thing is, I don't see the VA conceded a lot. You probably are going to need a expert medical opinion, but there's lots of conditions you can claim secondary. Leah?
Yeah, I actually just did a blog on this on my website last month. So I successfully helped a veteran. A veteran was successful with a case for multiple myeloma related to jet fuel exposure since Vietnam. And he just got approved for this a couple of months ago. It was a huge win for the veteran, which I was so happy for him. So there are a myriad of conditions that can be related. Most of the evidence and the research I see out there is for non-specific conditions. I've seen, like Ms. Carmella was saying, respiratory issues, things like that. But at the same time, you got to make sure that thing has been worked up and it's not something else. So a lot of non-specific things, but cancers. Let me see. I'm looking in my little database right here to see what I've done in the past. I think Miss Call did a migraine for somebody that had a good history of having them while they were on the airfield and, things like that with the jet fuel, but pretty non-specific stuff.
Mm. Okay, guys, so we've been here for about an hour. I'm just going to take just a couple more questions. I have many more questions than I can get to tonight, but we've been here for about an hour, and so we are getting ready to wrap up. But let me just do a couple more questions. There's lots of questions tonight. Let's see where. Here we go. I had a shoulder injury before I separated. Claimed it when I got out, but the VA I went to after said I didn't go to the doctor. I have images from when I was in the military. Can I reclaim and possibly get rated if this is still an issue? Yes, but you need to provide new and relevant evidence. Currently active duty, retiring 30 September. I've been diagnosed with a cervical strain and my BDD claim was submitted in July. If I claim this new condition after I retire, will the effective date be backdated to my initial claim of October 1st? So anything you claim within a year of service is going to go back to your discharge date. So the answer to that question is yes. But I would go ahead and file it now. Do you all have success with MST claims? Can you talk about that? Well, the thing with MST claims is it's a very personal and very individualistic situation. The specific trauma or what the person went through, man or woman. It's all about what happened to you, the story, and really the markers in your records that something happened. That's what the VA is looking for, markers. Now, the law doesn't say anything about markers. This is what the regional office has come up with. So MST claims can be tricky. Most of the time, I would recommend that you get some help with submitting your claim, but there's lots of people that have done it successfully by themselves, especially if the MST was reported. You should have no issues, but I have significant success with MST claims, but I know how to handle them and how to reach out and how to advocate for the veteran. And so that's why I'm saying a lot of times you might want to get some help or get somebody, a veteran service officer who knows what they're doing to look at your claim or be able to point out weight changes or behavior changes or things like that in your records that make the case for your MST. Leah?
I mean, I agree. I don't really get involved much with mental health stuff, but I do, the clients that I work with may have parallel processes going on. I mean, I know that the laws have changed recently, and it's supposed to be a lot more inclusive to getting these things approved. But as you mentioned, sometimes the regional offices kind of put protocols out that aren't necessarily in line with what the federal code says. And that's just when you got to get a great agent or VSO or somebody to help you kind of push back.
All righty. Last question for tonight. I was in somewhere in the world and filed for migraine and sinusitis and denied in December 2020. With the new presumptive for burn pit exposure, what other evidence should I submit? If you were denied for sinusitis in December 2020, and they have since, what you said is true, made it presumptive in the burn pit exposure, all you need to do is submit a supplemental claim for sinusitis on a 20-0995 supplemental claim form. Beside sinusitis, write, sinusitis is now presumptive. Please re-adjudicate my claim. They are obligated to re-adjudicate that claim. This is a very good question to end with. If you have previously denied something that has now been made presumptive, you need to file a supplemental claim ASAP and just write up there. You could just write sinusitis presumptive and they will re-adjudicate. But definitely refile for it. And because you filed in December 2020, your back pay date should go all the way back to them because it's been less than a year. After that, I would file the migraine secondary to sinusitis if that's an issue that if your sinusitis affects your migraines. But yes, that's a very good question to end with. There are new presumptive conditions: asthma, sinusitis, and allergic rhinitis. And if you have previously been denied for those things, please submit a supplemental claim, and that will make it much easier for you to get service connected for it. All righty, guys. Thank you so much. Again, you can reach me on any of my social media channels. Lots of them usually under veterans disability claims. Leah, tell them how they can reach you again.
Yeah, guys, you guys can reach me by going to my website, which is prestigeworldwidemctx.com. That's Medical Consulting Texas, basically. You can we have a Facebook page. I'm on Carmella's page all the time. So you can just search me by my name on Facebook, Leah Bucholz, Bucholz. And I check my messages daily. So
awesome. So good to be with you all tonight. Thank you for your service. I'm grateful, very appreciative of what you've done for this country and for fighting for my freedom and the freedom of people I love. It's grateful. I'm very grateful. And from my heart, thank you. And I'll continue serving just as long as I can do this work. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great night.